This week we talk about ham radio on the high seas, a new segment you'll enjoy with hints and tips, what is new on the channel, and the change you'll see. Plus we're bringing you some laughter back for the Ham Radio Guy Joke of the Week. All this and much more. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Ham Radio Guy podcast. I'm Marvin and my call sign is W0MET. Whether you're an experienced ham or just getting started, this podcast is for you. We're bringing you the latest of topics, news, and information, and all things amateur radio right here to this episode and to this show. This is the episode number 41, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Well, I'm going to do kind of a new segment feature right off the bat this week. And this is the new feature segment called Something I Learned. So as long as I have started taking up satellite passes and learning to do a little bit more with them on the FM side, gain a little bit more interest in this through my work and everything. So I've tried to make several contacts without having any success. And more particularly with the ISS repeater directly. And of course, it's got the crossband FM repeater on there. And this has just been over the past several days. And so I finally texted a friend and said, hey, what am I doing wrong here? I don't seem to be making any contacts with it. I can't hear anything coming from the ISS as it's gone over. So I said, what other satellites do you particularly use and whatnot? And I said, have you had any issues or have you been in contact with it lately? And he goes, well, something came out on Twitter. There was some space station docking on the ISS, so the crossband repeater will be down. But it looks like it should have been back up sometime today. Okay, fair enough. So while he was on there, he kind of talked to me about going out to the AMSAT webpage, and I'm going to show you this. If you're watching the podcast by chance, you'll see this on the YouTube. You can go out to amsat.org, click on satellite info kind of in the middle of the page, and go down to the box where it says current status. And it kind of shows you what the current status of the satellites are and who's made contact with them and how recent and that sort of thing. So and if you have, you can always go in here and submit a report showing, downlink was only working or it wasn't heard, or, the ISS crew voice was active, and you can make your reports for date and times as needed. So, as of this date, August 18th, looks like it's been, active and been heard. So I got some good reports coming back there. So, but if you haven't worked satellites recently, or maybe you're just new to getting started on this as well, this is a good page to go through and check. And it might be very helpful to you. So this is my ham radio tip of the week here, is to go through and check this amsat.org page if you're working satellite antenna or satellites for AMSAT, and see what's been active or what hasn't been active if you've not been on there for a while, or maybe, you're just getting new to this. It might be worth going and doing. So hopefully that will help you and be a little more effective and efficient in your ham operations with doing satellite passes. So anyway, I hope that will be good for you. Don't forget the newsletter sign up. Still have that on my link in the show notes. As always, you'll find that there. And we don't want to forget the sponsors of our show. We appreciate them who help us out. And, Dakota Lithium, your ultimate outdoor power solution. If you're an adventure enthusiast, are you ready to supercharge your outdoor experience? Let's talk about Dakota Lithium batteries, your new best friend for reliable, long-lasting power. Dakota Lithium isn't just any battery. With an incredible 11-year warranty, these batteries are built to endure the toughest conditions and keep your gear running smoothly. Whether you're powering your ham radio shack, portable operations, RV, boat, or solar setup, Dakota Lithium ensures you've got the juice to go the distance and get yours today and keep your adventure going. And check out my link and save 5% in the show notes. So you always get that discount with me. and I hope you will take advantage of it. Got several of these batteries I've been using. In fact, I just used one on a POTA operation yesterday morning, a little 20 amp hour one. It works perfectly, and it's been a great little battery for me to take and travel with, and it does seem to last really well. So hope that you will take an opportunity to explore Dakota Lithium batteries for your ham shack. I've got one powered right back behind me in the corner, and so that's what's powering this ham shack as well on the back end if power does go out. So if you'd like to help support the channel, become a patron. Look for me over at patreon.com/thehamradioguy. There are 3 levels you can support the channel at: technician, general, or extra. You can simply support the channel at just $2 a month or get the extra class membership with more benefits. So I hope that you will take an opportunity to go over there and check out the page. Still giving away the FTM 300 as well. Well, let's get into a little news here and see what we got going on. U.S. business petitions for expanded use of 900 megahertz. Since 1995, the location and monitoring services have been allocated use of the band between 902 and 928 megahertz. In fact, I think that's kind of where Meshtastic roughly relies now. They share primary user status with industrial, scientific, and medical users, as well as government. Amateur radio and unlicensed FCC Part 15 devices are secondary users. The FCC is seeking comments no later than 5th of September, and hams are being encouraged to look at petition and provide input on how amateur radios might be affected. Matt K0LWS explains the details in a podcast on his YouTube channel, where he has also posted links to the FCC documents and NextNav's petition. Follow the link in the text version of this week's newsline, or this week's report, or you can follow the story also at amateurradionewsline.org. So check out the YouTube channel. I'll have a link in my show notes to that. Got another news story here. Satellite operation out there as well, called Robusta 3A, a French student-built CubeSat launched in July by the European Space Agency, and Sonate 2, a German CubeSat that activated its first APRS digipeater earlier this month. Sonate 2 was launched in March. Amateurs chasing Robusta have been advised to expect operating protocols and uplink frequencies similar to the FalconSat 3 store and forward system. Until its formal commissioning, Robusta 3A was to transmit short telemetry burst at 436.750 MHz. The downlink coordinated by the IARU. Robusta's main mission is weather observation. It is the 7th satellite built on campus by students at the University of Montpellier and elsewhere. Meanwhile, plenty of activity has been reported on the APRS digipeater aboard Sonate 2, whose mission has been to demonstrate the use of AI with autonomous payloads. The digipeater operates intermittently and in half-duplex mode using the call sign DP0SNX. This story and more brought to you by Amateur Radio News with a release date of August 18th, 2024. Well, if you're looking for a top-notch coaxial cable and connectors for your ham radio setup, look no further than ABR Industries. Whether you're a seasoned amateur radio operator or just getting started, ABR Industries has you covered with high-quality cables and connectors and accessories that are built to last. Trusted by professionals and hobbyists alike, ABR Industries delivers performance you can rely on. Say goodbye to signal loss and hello crystal clear communication. Visit ABR Industries today at abrind.com and elevate your ham radio experience. Save 10 ham radio guy. So save 10 ham radio guy, and that would be save 10 for a 10% discount on your cost with the ABR Industries there. So hopefully that will be helpful to you. I do use them completely in my shack. All my cables, my jumpers, everything is all powered by ABR. I don't say not powered, but all my coax is ABR Industries. So I do trust them in what I use, and very reliable. Been holding up for 6 years now, at least in my cable that I've had. It's been good quality. Well, again, you can find a link to all of this in the show notes description. If you have any questions or comment, you can always reach out to me at w0met@thehamradioguy.com. Before we get into our news of the week, I do have a short news segment as well that I'd like to introduce, and this is the Ham Radio Guy Joke of the Week. We kind of did this maybe a few episodes into some of the new ones way back when, and it was kind of something I would find or read and do. Now I've got somebody that's actually doing this for me, and I hope you'll take a moment and you will like this as we do this new segment with the Ham Radio Guy Joke of the Week. Here we go. It's now time for the Ham Radio Guy Joke of the Week, where Rick tells us the joke. The Ham Radio Guy Joke of the Week is brought to you by Ham Radio Prep. Now here is Rick Garrett, N9 GSU, with today's Ham Radio Guy Joke of the Week.
Last summer, a buddy of mine and I drove all the way out to Yellowstone National Park to do a couple of days of POTA activating. We had a great time, but after a couple of days in the wilderness, we were ready for some civilization. So we found a local pub and we stopped in for a drink and a burger. As we were sitting there, a grizzly bear burst through the door, got up to the bar, opened its mouth and said, "I'll have a beer and a shot." And the bartender says, "Hey, Mr. Grizzly Bear, why the big paws?"
This has been the Ham Radio Guy Joke of the Week with Rick Garrett, N9 GSU. Turn in next week for another joke from Rick. All right. Well, hope you enjoyed that. We'll be bringing you a lot more of those with Rick Garrett, N9 GSU. Something new I'm kind of adding here, like along with a couple other things, and I hope that you're enjoying those. So I'm going to leave out the Hamvention schedule. The only thing I'm going to talk about quick is the Ham Radio Expo in Marlborough, Massachusetts, August 22nd to the 25th. It's at the Best Western Convention Center there in Marlborough, Massachusetts. And I'll be there Thursday night with a comedy show. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we'll have the Winter Field Day booth there. I'll be walking around with stickers and whatnot for the Ham Radio Guy. To be doing a couple interviews with several vendors that you'll find some of those videos coming forth on YouTube as well after that. I did not make it to Huntsville. That was just this past weekend. In fact, it's probably wrapping up as of this recording. And unfortunately, I missed that. Was not able to get down there this year for that Huntsville Ham Fest. Don't forget to go out and check the ARRL schedule for other Hamfests that might be locally in your area and support those folks who do support ham radio. And you might find a good product there as well. Something from the Treasure Troll tailgate, section as well. That's always good. And so, it's always good to attend a Hamfest when you can. So looking forward to Ham Expo next week in Marlborough, Massachusetts. And I'm sure it's going to be a really good show this year. They've really stepped up their game and tried to do a few other things. Hope we'll see you there. So look me up if you're around. We have a little YouTube section as well. It's in the front atrium area, not too far from the Winter Field Day booth. So looking forward to hopefully seeing you guys and talking to you there. One other quick thing is that I have brought to you this week is that, there we go. I brought it up on the screen. If you're seeing this, the Ham Radio Guy logo. We have a new logo coming out called the Ham Radio Guy Podcast. And not a new name, but just a new logo. Won't be my face behind the microphone and screen anymore. But, it's kind of a blue and silver colors. And I hope you'll take a moment to look at that. And I'll try and, if you're out on the Patreon page, you guys have probably seen this already. I put a vote out there for you guys to take a vote on this, and this is kind of the one of you guys that really liked it, and I'd liked it as well as my top notch in the selection I made for having a new logo presented for the Ham Radio channel. So I probably should put that more to the top of the news of the podcast here, but wanted to bring that in as just part of my other segments and things that I'm doing. I really appreciate the listeners and the ham radio community surrounding this channel, and I hope that you'll continue to give me support, and I thank you all very much for making this happen. Let's get into our topic of the week, ham radio adventures on the high seas. Now, this will be a little bit of a longer segment just because there's a lot of information around this, and the information I was finding, first of all, was from like 2014 to 2019. I couldn't find anything really relative as of like 2023, 2024. in terms of people talking about cruising on the high seas with a cruise line using ham radio. So it seems like what information they did have was several years old now, and it does not seem to be applicable the same way today as it was maybe back then. So first of all, it's always fun to take your amateur radio mobile, and it includes operating on ships and planes, with some special rules, of course. What do you need on board to operate ham radio on a ship or aircraft? And I'm mostly talking about ships here. I won't be talking about aircraft too much, but its operations must be approved by the master of the ship or the captain, and obviously it would be the pilot in command of an aircraft. But in simple terms, the captain of the cruise ship must give their approval, and that's the bottom line, is trying to get that approval, trying to get that going, and I think that's going to be your benchmark to try and achieve first. But we'll talk about this as we go a little further here. Now, you have to understand with cruising, I've done a lot of research on this and really check this out. Hope that you'll enjoy this. For U.S. registered vessels in the international waters, the licensing is pretty easy. Any FCC issued amateur license can be used on a ship or plane. The U.S. registration kind of makes this a U.S. territory, so the FCC rules apply. The control operator must be a U.S. eligible ham as well. Physical control of the station on a vessel or craft documented or registered in the U.S. must be any person holding an FCC-issued license who is authorized for alien or reciprocal operation. Now, this is different for a non-U.S. vessel registered. So just like U.S. rules apply on U.S. registered ships, if you're a ship registered in another country, then those countries' rules apply. So taking a cruise on board a cruise ship in Panama, you'd be under Panama's ham radio rules until you get back to land in the U.S. So let's get back into a reciprocal licensing for international operation here in just a minute. Now, where and how you can operate once you leave the U.S. depends on, again, the countries you may and be going to, or where you're traveling to at that point. So reciprocal licensing means you can operate here and you can operate there. CEPT, which is the European Conference of Postal and Telecommunication Administration's permit, this requires you to bring along a little bit more information to show that you have a ham radio license. You need to have an IARP, which is a pre-registered permit obtained before you go. You need to have direct licensing with the country you're going to. And so let's just say, for example, Canada. The United States and Canada have a direct reciprocal agreement. So you just need to bring your FC license and an ID with you. And then you can use your call sign and a suffix VE1 in, like, let's say Nova Scotia. A lot of people travel up to Nova Scotia. It's a beautiful country, great place to be. Been up there, before. Did not operate, but have been up there. There's that part with, like, Canada. But the CEPT agreement also is a reciprocal license agreement, and this covers you in more than 40 European countries. And you can find out more information on their website directly. And you can just Google search and type in CEPT, and it'll come right up. I think it's one of the top 2 there I found. And you can operate there, and obviously in the U.S., by following just a few rules. When it comes to operating on the high seas, there's actually, what I found was kind of interesting is because it says Article 1 of the Geneva Convention of 1958. The term high seas means all parts of the sea that are not included in the territorial sea or in the internal waters of a state. Fair enough, clear enough, I get that. Article 2 states the high seas being open to all nations, no state may validly purport to subject any part of them to its sovereignty. The sovereignty of a state extends to its airspace above the territorial sea, as well as the sea floor and the subsoil beneath it. How far does that territorial water go? Well, the U.S. claims 3 nautical miles out as U.S. territory. And something I did learn on the cruise itself is that most Caribbean island nations will claim 3 to 12 miles, although there are really no exceptions. The territorial limits of certain Caribbean nations and other islands, nations whose areas consist of small islands, are overlapping, creating a larger territorial area than one might assume. Depending on where you're going, what you're doing, where you want to operate, you're going to have to research and figure out where it's at. Now, the ARRL has a really nice page for figuring out the reciprocal agreements and page information of the country you need to go to, who you need to write, and things like that. I did not bring that up as a shortcut, but let me see if I can find that real quick. Reciprocal. I guess I need to type ARRL. It's not ARRL. So it's just the ARRL.org / reciprocal -permit. And that will bring up the page. I'll show that here on the YouTube channel as well. You can find that here in the very top. And it talks about all the different countries you want to go to and who you have to reach out to be able to do that. Each one's got a different agreement to go with. And, you can see SEPT as part of those agreements in there under the, when I scroll here, you see SEPT for Austria, things like that. So anyway, it does have some information pages on there you can go check out. And I'll leave a link in the show notes for this as well that I'm referring to. So you might be able to find it a little easier if you're going to go to a foreign country to operate. Might be, interesting, and you might want to take this in advance and check these things out. But you would not want to do this probably 60 to 90 days in advance. On my last cruise, I did this probably, I want to say like 30 days in advance, and it was not enough time. I haven't even gotten my license back yet, and I've already returned from the cruise. So that's not going to fly, obviously. Now it won't work, but, I had to pay money out for that and kind of a lost cause at that point. Probably should have called them, see if I could get it expedited. I didn't do that. Something to think about in the future, maybe. Before I go into talking about some of the steps you'll need laid out, we'll talk about a little bit more about why countries have the use of frequencies and power limitations, identification agreements, and other regulations that can vary widely from the U.S. here. So often in the U.S., we just assume we can, operate in other countries, or they've been allocated the same information we have, but that's not the case. And each of the 3 International Telecommunication Union regions have their own allocations for various services, and then don't necessarily conform to our frequencies in the U.S., which is Region 2. So if you operate maritime mobile, you must not exceed the frequency limitations for each region as you travel through that in a ship, wherever you're traveling across. So just be aware of that. Again, worth doing some investigation homework here before you're traveling to make this work. So here are some of the things, many steps you'll need I've laid out for you that might be helpful. So the first thing you need to do is obtain the permission of the cruise ship company itself to have an amateur radio transmitter in your possession while on board. Whether you use it or not, you need a permission to have it on board. Some sort of written authorization I would highly recommend with you. Many cruise lines have a procedure and list out in the frequently asked questions area that ham radios are not specifically allowed. I've checked with like Celebrity, Royal Caribbean, which is kind of a subsidy of, or Celebrity's a subsidy of Royal Caribbean. I want to say I checked with like Holland America and not Viking, Norwegian and Carnival, and none of those had ham radio allowed on board the ship. One cruise line I did find that is ham friendly, and this is the one article I did find, was Disney. Surprising enough, Disney allowed ham radio to be on board their ship. And so it's very limited nowadays in what you can allow on that ship to come in. And I mean, in their frequently asked questions section, they have guns, knives, all kinds of tools, and ham radios is one of those things that was listed in there. So the cruise line representatives or salespeople can typically tell you what the requirements are, but just be aware that a vast majority of cruise lines today are not allowing ham radio on board ships. Now, that's not to say you couldn't bring it on your luggage, and if you're going to Alaska per se, maybe, for example, like, next summer, that you could pack it in your luggage and possibly just operate while you're on the island a little bit and try and make some contacts, pack it up in a little backpack again, carry it back off the ship, and nobody may know anything different. So even though you do get your stuff scanned coming in and out of the ship, I mean, they do monitor that type of stuff for any weapons or something that might be coming on board. But I think you'd probably be fine getting through that. So as long as you weren't using it on the ship, you should be safe to use it in a U.S. state, I would think, at that point. So, which would be Alaska. So that's something to think about. Now, you also need permission of the ship's captain, not just the ship company, but the ship's captain in order to use the radio as number 2. Throwing a wire over the side of the ship will not cut it. And you may have restrictions on placement and other issues and timing, maybe thrown at you as well for some obstructions when you're asking for the captain's permission. Number 3, if the ship is a non-U.S. registry, you'll need a reciprocal operating authorization from the country the ship is registered in. And remember, when international waters, this is the case, you're limited by the ship's operating privileges authorized by that country, especially if it's a country of like a sovereign territory of the country flag. You'll have to, if they're flying something different, then you'll have to make sure you comply with that. And then number 4 is when FCC licensed amateur is operating an amateur transmitter aboard a U.S. registered ship. They must follow Part 97 rules. U.S. and Canadian license need no special permit or authorization other than your own, as followed in 97.11 when the U.S. and national waters. So just be aware of that. So again, a lot of obstacles to overcome when trying to operate on board a cruise ship. I just today don't think it's even really possible. Again, Disney may be the only one that can do that in this summary of what I've talked about so far. But a lot of permissions from foreign countries and ships and the ship's cruise line, whatever cruise line you're going to be going on, and getting past all those with them saying the same thing and saying yes, kind of like American Idol. You got to have 3 or 4 yeses to go past to go on. You'll also need 3 or 4 yeses here to make this all happen and be able to get permission to operate again. Just don't think that's going to be possible today, but never know. Were to get permission, or if you're going to be taking it along a trip and might be operating in Alaska on land, is that, where do you plan to operate? What islands, what stops can you do that at? What modes do you plan to operate? You're going to do single sideband, a digital. Can you do CW? What antenna do you plan to use? Vertical? Can you put up a dipole in the tree somewhere? Do you want to have a mast you can carry with you? One of the questions is, where's your cabin located on the ship? If you're going to try and operate somewhere, it may make a difference. And what are the HF band conditions like when you leave? So there's some important things just to think about. And let's talk about this a little bit more. Modes of operation. Using single sideband can lead to a few contacts. Working voice, especially if you're going to do QRP, may be kind of tough. Band conditions, this solar cycle or sunspot cycle in 2024 have been pretty good, but they've been off and on too at times. And again, using QRP can be difficult at best, maybe even impossible sometimes. So you may want like a 100-watt radio to go with you. And even on the best band conditions, on 10 meters, may yield just a few contacts using only 5 watts. So, the CW is probably one of your better choices if you can do CW. I can't. I just don't have the skilled technical training for it. And not that I shouldn't maybe prep myself for it, but I would try digital if I could on 10 watts and see what I could do with that. That would be my choice to go to probably. I believe they're one of the best options for reliable QSOs, and they work best with just a laptop, even in maybe if you're just in the cabin, working digital mode somehow, but it's going to come down to your choice of antenna selection. We'll talk about that in just a minute here. But like FT8, PSK31, JT65 is probably a second choice, a little bit more complex, but might be a good choice to go with. The direction of travel of your cruise ship may make a difference because you're going to be on one side of the ship or the other. And so your direction is only going to be directionality of going whatever the side of the starboard or the other side of the ship that you're going to be on port side will make a difference. And so you might be facing south, you might be facing west, and that's all you're going to be able to get. Depending if you're going up and back the same direction, that might make a difference. You might be facing eastwards going first time and west coming back. So you just never know what you're going to have. So think about those things. And again, a likely operations from a balcony with a wire hanging over the side of it is not going to fly probably very well. And, your antenna can act like a beam with less than 180 degree propagation with that wire. But you may have to tune it too, depending on what near metal structures are nearby with that ship. Obviously, it's made of metal, and so you can have some polarization going on there. Your antenna selection. Are you going to go wire or a portable vertical? Wire antennas probably not permitted on, again, non-cruise lines. So you have to buy a vertical of some sort. That's probably your most likely choice. And the MFJ 1899 is a widely used best band for 10 meters. There's a CN32 Canadian well-constructed must-tune. It's an OPEK HVT 400B antenna. Not familiar with it. Just saw it in my notes, something I was researching. And so it might be something to consider. You've got something like the Wolf River Coil. And there's some other ones that are out there nowadays that you might be able to come up with as well. Obviously, something like a DX Commander or Vertical is not going to work, but, it is some other ones out there you can find. Rigs to use. Personally, I think the ICOM 705 would be the best choice. But again, you are limited to only 10 watts. So again, that's where that digital mode may come in. And so you could do single sideband, maybe tough on 10 watts, might be possible. An 897, maybe an 891 from Yaesu might be good. If you had a KX3 rig, again, limited on watts there, might be another one you can try. If you're good at CW, it might be a good popular choice for that. Obviously, these can run on batteries. They have computer faces with them, and they're designed for that cat control and digital communications, which I think would be great for that mode if that's what you're going to try and do. Your computer, obviously, you want to keep it light. You want to keep it simple. Something like the Evolve Maestro computer might be a good choice. Maybe if you've got a small Windows laptop of some sort, that might work as well, or a tablet that has some other integration in it besides like an iPad, but you get like a Samsung Windows tablet or something like that. That would probably be a good choice. Something light, easy to carry around. And then, what software are you going to need? Are you going to need WSJTX, FLDigi? Again, are you operating in Windows or Linux or Mac OS? Lenovo laptops are always very good, and you can have lots of choices there with either, again, whatever operating systems you want for Windows or Linux. Again, having all your cables, your power cables, your coax, having all those different products that you need really has a lot of things to think about. How you're going to plan for that cruise. Again, I just don't see a lot of cruise lines allowing that to go forth. But, if you're going to operate on land in like Alaska, if you're going to do that and take a cruise, you might be just fine. If you're going to go operate in Canada, you probably can be just fine just using their call sign ahead of time. And so you do got those reciprocal agreements, and I would just double check on all that before you travel. So in conclusion, operating from a cruise ship here can be challenging, but it could be very well worth the time and effort as well. I would think a single sideband operation should not be the main mode of operation, and digital modes are probably the best way to go, or CW. And it takes a lot of planning, and think about bringing all which is light and weight and easy for portable use would be best option there as well. Obviously, I don't want to bring a big 7300 with me or something like that. That takes a lot more space and room and time to unload and pack up and have more secure cases. I had like the 891 literally in a backpack before with some rail bars on the side to help protect it. Worked just fine, and it's small and portable. So, well, that brings this ham radio cruising on the high seas to an end here, talking about that. And so I hope that you got something out of that, and hope if you plan on doing a cruise, something to think about, some things to consider. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear comments on this. Have you had success in doing this? I didn't find very many people online talking about it, and so I'm hoping that you'll have some comments around this, and that was this type of information useful for you, and we'll go from there. Well, if you're looking for all things ham radio related, visit the Ham Radio Guy website over at the patreon.com/the Ham Radio Guy, where I keep informative content, product reviews, and exciting blog posts. Join the conversation on your favorite podcast platform. Stay up to date with latest trends and news in the ham radio world. Connect with us on Twitter and enjoy even more updates and engaging interactions. Don't miss out on the fun and knowledge sharing. Subscribe to the Ham Radio Guy today, either Patreon, podcast, or YouTube. I'm on all those, and I appreciate your support there. Well, if you enjoy the podcast, we'd love again for you to subscribe, and please rate me and review me. Helps with the algorithms, and you can find me on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube podcast. And spread the word by telling your friends, family, neighbors about us, and follow us on Twitter, and again at patreon.com/TheHamRadioGuy. I hope you learned something this week in your in this podcast that will help you in your ham radio operations. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them on Twitter, and email me at w0met@thehamradioguy.com.